Hello everyone. So in today's video, I thought we would make Nanaimo bars. I haven't made them in a really long time. It's my son's favorite, so that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to be using this recipe here. It's out of the Company's Coming cookbook for 100 delicious squares. I have made this recipe before, but it has been a really long time. So this recipe is on page 40 of this book, if you do have this book. Okay, so we have to melt the first three ingredients over a double boiler. So we need, for half a cup of butter is for one times the recipe. I am going to double this recipe just because I want to make a decent amount of it. I'm going to make a pan full, and what my kids don't eat I'm going to freeze for a different time, just so I don't have to make this again for a while. So I am doubling the recipe. Okay, so we need to melt the butter, the sugar, and the cocoa powder together. So I'm going to let that start melting. Where is my, oh, there it is. Give you a little close-up look here. Okay, so I need about 1/4 cup of sugar. Actually, half a cup. Just remembered I'm doubling. So I need about half a cup of sugar altogether. When I was reading the recipe for this, because I have made this exact recipe before, I don't remember, like I haven't made this for years, but I don't remember cooking the base layer, which is weird to me, like melting it. But like I said, it has been a really long time, so I could have just forgotten that you have to melt the first three ingredients together. Okay, and then we need 1/3 cup of cocoa powder, so double that. I am going to sift this. I always sift my cocoa powder. It has a lot of lumps in it. I'm going to need 2 of these. And then once these 3 ingredients are melted together, we add the rest of the ingredients. We add them in cold. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. It's steaming pretty good. If I get a little bit of this in here, it's okay. The cooking and melting of it should get most of the lumps out, but I want to make sure. My son is very much looking forward to this. I've been putting off making these for a while. I do recommend whenever you're baking anything to sift your cocoa powder. Cocoa powder is notorious for lumps. I don't sift my flour. I could sift my flour, especially if I was making like a really nice cake or something, I might sift it. But for the majority of the time I don't, unless my flour is very lumpy. It does create a smoother texture if you do sift it though. Okay. that in. There's still some chunks of butter in there that aren't melted completely. I want to make sure I added enough sugar. Yep. Just because that was a lot of cocoa powder. I want to make sure there was enough sugar to go along with it. So Nanaimo bars are actually a Canadian classic. They originated in Nanaimo, BC, in British Columbia. They are quite sweet, so keep that in mind. That is one of the reasons why I like to make them homemade. The ones that you buy from the store are extremely sweet. I like to add a pinch of salt to the middle layer because the middle layer is what makes them the sweetest. It's got a lot of icing sugar in it and can be quite sweet. So I add a pinch or two of salt to it to balance out the sweetness, and it makes them a lot more delicious. Okay, so everything's melted. So I'm going to let the mixture cool just a little bit before we add the other ingredients into it. Okay, so for the next ingredients, I let this cool just for a couple minutes. I don't want to let it cool too much because we need to add egg to the mixture here. It says 1 egg beaten. I just realized I need 2 because I doubled the recipe. Just 1 sec, I gotta get another one. Another one. So I'm going to add these in slowly, just so they don't cook. I'm not sure what the reason is for the egg, but it calls for an egg. Okay. I'm going to do this really slowly. Do not want the egg to cook. I mean, we do want it to warm through and cook, but not like cause scrambled eggs. It does say that it helps the mixture thicken, so maybe that's why. There we go. Okay. So now we need some graham cracker crumbs. So 1 3/4 cups is 1 times the recipe. So we need twice that. Hopefully I have enough in here. If I don't, I'll substitute some extra coconut. Ooh. One. So about 3.5 cups. 3, I think we might have just enough. Yep, just enough. 3.5. I'm just going to give this a light mix. Okay, and then we need fine or medium coconut. We need 3/4 cup, which is 1 times. So we're going to do 1.5 cups for 2 times. And then there's an optional ingredient, which is finely chopped walnuts. I'm going to leave the walnuts out just because my daughter doesn't like nuts, so she can have some of this too. So 1 times the recipe makes about a 9 by 9 pan. I have a 9 by 13 pan here because I'm doubling the recipe. So now you just want to mix this together nice and thoroughly, and then we're going to press it together in the pan here. It says in the recipe not to grease the pan. I did take it upon myself to fold some parchment paper in here though, just so once the bars are set, I can lift them out to chop them up, but that is purely preference. I'm just giving it a good mix here. Okay, I think this is good. Now we can push this into the bottom layer here. There is a lot of butter in this, so I can see why they say not to grease the pan. The bottom layer is quite thick usually with Nanaimo bars, so keep that in mind. The mixture is nice and cooled down now. Nanaimo bars have 3 layers to them. There's the base layer, which is the coconut and cocoa powder, the base layer here with the graham cracker crumbs. And then the second layer is like icing sugar and custard powder with butter. That's the layer I like to stick the salt in. And then the top layer is a chocolate. Okay, so I'm gonna let this set in the fridge while we make the second layer. Just wanted to give you guys a nice close-up look. You can see all the coconut and the graham crackers, how chocolatey it looks. Okay, now let's get started. Okay, so for the second layer, we need half a cup of butter, softened. I softened mine a little too much. This is 1 whole cup because I'm doubling the recipe. So hopefully it's not too much. Okay, and then we need 1 times the recipe is half a cup of ice. Oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong recipe here. Hold on. Almost did the wrong thing here. 2 cups of icing sugar. That is a lot. This is a half cup measure. So I need 4 cups altogether because I doubled the recipe. 1. 2. 3. This is going to be so sweet. 3.5 and 4. Okay, and then we need vanilla custard powder. This is the brand that I use. So we need, for 1 times the recipe is 2 tablespoons, so we're going to do 4 tablespoons. This is what gives it the bright yellow color. 2, 3, 4. So in the recipe, it doesn't call for, it does not call for salt, but I am going to add some salt to this. Just from my experience of making Nanaimo bars, the middle layer is very sweet. So I like to try and balance it out with a little bit of salt. So I'm going to start with half a teaspoon and we'll go from there. Okay, so now we just got to mix all this together until it's nice and fluffy. It does say you can add a few tablespoons of milk if it's too thick. So let's see. I think this is going to go everywhere. I probably should have done this in stages, but We'll see. I'm just mixing it a little bit here. Surprisingly, that didn't go everywhere. Went a little bit on the counter, but not too bad. Okay, so I am going to add a little bit of milk. It says 2 tablespoons, so we can add up to 4 tablespoons. I'm going to add 2 for now. We'll see how this comes together. Just because I know my butter was a little bit, I thought it a little too much. Kind of flying everywhere here. Okay, let me get a spoon and I'm going to taste this by itself just to see if I need to add a little bit more salt. A little nervous about it because it's going to be really sweet no matter what, but I'm hoping to have balanced it a little bit with the salt. It's not bad actually. I think that might be good. When this is combined with the bottom layer and the chocolate layer, because the chocolate layer, you can use either semi-sweet chocolate or dark chocolate. I prefer to use semi-sweet. It makes things taste delicious. I think though, this isn't in the recipe, but I think I'm going to add maybe a teaspoon of vanilla to this just to give it a little bit more flavor. Mix that up and see. I think I'm also going to add a little bit more of the milk. I want this to be spreadable. And it is quite thick right now. So let's do 2. That should be more than enough. That looks pretty much perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna go get the other layer out of the fridge and we'll put this on top. Let me just get a spatula here. Okay, so this bottom layer is starting to set up really nice. It's a lot harder than it was. Okay, so now we're just gonna spoon this on top and spread it out. It does have a fairly balanced flavor now that I put the vanilla in it. I did taste it again. It's a lot of filling. Just 1 sec here. I'm just getting one of my little knives out here. When these are cut, they actually look very beautiful. The contrast between the chocolate and the yellow custard layer. I am going to freeze half of this. So these are a pretty sweet treat, but they're delicious. But this is something I like to eat maybe one or two of. My son, on the other hand, absolutely loves these. The last few years I've been buying these. Like I said, I haven't made these in quite a while. I usually buy them around Christmas time or holidays. That's when I buy them the most. They're pretty available where I live. Okay. I'm just going to smooth this out just a little bit more because we have one more layer that goes on top of this, and it is a chocolate layer. If you want to balance out the sweetness of the middle, you could use dark chocolate, but it is recommended to use semi-sweet. I do not recommend using anything sweeter than semi-sweet. The bar would be way, way too sweet. Highly recommend putting a little bit of salt into this middle layer. It really helps balance out all the icing sugar. When I make icing for my cakes or cupcakes, I also stick a little bit of salt into it. It really, really balances it. I'm just trying to make this fairly smooth so that the layers look nice when we cut into it. Okay. So I am going to go and get the chocolate for the second layer. I'm going to put this in the fridge to set up a bit while we're melting the chocolate for the second layer. In the last clip, I said this was the second layer. It's actually the third layer. I realized I said that afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to microwave the chocolate. So I'm going to use it in this glass bowl here. So it says 2/3 of a cup for 1 times the recipe, or you can do 4 squares of these. I'm going to do, it says 4 1-ounce squares. So because we have, there's 8 ounces in this entire box, and I doubled the recipe, so I'm going to cut up both of these, and that hopefully should be enough. If it's not, I'll melt some more. I have some more here. I personally like using semi-sweet baker's chocolate. In this recipe, in this book, it does say you can use chocolate chips, but I'm going to use some baking chocolate here. So I'm just going to give it a light chop so it melts a little nicer. So I'm going to try not to burn it this time. Last time I let it get away from me and I burnt it. I can't remember, was that in my Christmas video? I don't even remember. It was one of my videos in the last couple months. I had to go back to the oh, it was cake pops, that's what it was. We were doing cake pops. I had to go back to the store because I burnt all the chocolate. So when you're melting this in the microwave, do it on 30-second increments. I had done it a little too long in between and burnt it. Don't be like me. Okay, so it usually doesn't take long to melt it, so just keep that in mind. 30 seconds, give it a stir, put it on for another 30 seconds, give it a stir until it's completely melted. You actually don't even need to melt it completely. I like to melt it till it's 3/4 and then finish melting it with the heat from the mixture. We also need to add a little bit of butter into this. 2 tablespoons. So I'll have to add about 3 or 4 tablespoons. That's to give the texture of the top a little softer texture so it doesn't set completely. It'll be more of like a little bit thicker than a chocolate ganache. Okay, let me add the butter before I forget. Chocolate all over my hands. I think there's probably just enough in this pack here, but we'll see. Two, three, four. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go melt this, and I'll be right back, and we'll put it on the last layer of the squares. Okay, I finished melting the chocolate. So let's pour this on top and create the third layer. This is actually starting to set up nicely. This layer will stay a little bit soft, but we don't want it to be too soft. Okay. So these squares are going to take a little bit to set up completely before we can cut into them. I'm trying to do this fairly quickly. I know that it's not going to set up completely, the chocolate here, because we did add butter to it. This top layer is not a thick layer. So do keep that in mind. It's not as thick as the other two. My son doesn't know that I was making these today. He knew that I was making them soon, but he did not know it was going to be today. So he's going to be quite happy. Actually, all of my family really likes these. So I'm hoping that I'll end up having some for the freezer, but we'll see. I know them. Just make it look nice on top. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to put these into the fridge and I'm going to let these chill. Let me see if the recipe says how long for. I don't think it does. No, it just says chill in the refrigerator. So I'm going to let these chill, and I think once this top layer is really set, we'll come back and we'll slice into them together. The chocolate layer does look really beautiful. I just wanted to give you a little look at that. Okay, see you soon. Okay, so I just took these out of the freezer, or the fridge, pardon me. I think this might be set enough to cut into. So let's attempt to cut into these. Okay, so I just cut right around the edge right here, so I can hopefully lift this out nicely. Let's see here. There we go. Perfect. I was a little concerned, but nope, worked great. I'm glad I put the parchment paper down. Doesn't that look beautiful? Take a look at that, the layers. Okay, so let's cut a piece and taste it. Let me get a different knife here. I'm just going to cut a corner piece here. So the chocolate on the top is a little bit thicker than I thought. Texture-wise, it's not quite like a ganache. It's a little bit thicker than a ganache. These are set perfectly. I'm very happy about that. So that's what it looks like that. Okay, let's taste it. I'm just going to cut a little piece off of this to taste. It's really good. it cut the sweetness really, really well. I think I might try making this with dark chocolate once. I've never tried it with dark chocolate. It's really good. The bottom layer has like the texture, the coconut. It's really good. I'm tasting the vanilla that I added to the middle layer. It gave it so much more flavor than normal. I actually really like that. So that is how you make Nanaimo bars. So I hope you guys try it, and hope to see you next time. Bye.